ushered off the bridge very quickly. What was the mood like? Were people fairly calm, or were people rather more panicking?
Panicky. I mean, there was people in the cafe opposite us, Farmer J's, and at first they closed all the doors, but then the police opened the doors and made everybody sort of sprint out all at once. It was very panicky, but it seems like the police dealt with it quite well. They got everybody out of the area pretty quick.
Thomas, we're looking, as you speak, at an image that you've sent in to us, which I assume you filmed on your phone. Can you just explain to us exactly where that is in relation to the bridge?
So from that image, if you were to go to the left, that's London Bridge.
Right.
So that's pretty much looking at the end of London Bridge, that.
And when did you take this photograph? When did you take this film?
Probably about 45 minutes ago.
And so if you were to look at the scene now, does it still look like that?
I've been evacuated from the area now, so I'm now by Tower Bridge.
Right, yes, you said. And when you say you were ushered away from the area, was that by the police? And if so, what did they say to you?
So they communicated with the receptionist downstairs in my office, who communicated with us that we needed to evacuate the building. And then as soon as we got downstairs, they made us all sort of sprint right.
And that was Thomas Dumford, an eyewitness who spoke to us just a little earlier. Kirsten Jones was at the scene when the incident began, and she brought us this update.
Actually, I was walking onto the bridge from the north side, walking towards Monument Station, and there was a police van hurtling down the road, and City of London police sprinting and shouting, and we thought, oh, perhaps someone's been hit by a car. As we got further towards the station and onto the bridge, people were starting to run, and there was quite a lot of panic. Then we heard about 2, 3, maybe 4 very loud gunshots, and that's when the police started really screaming at people to get off the bridge and really run and try and get into the safest and nearest building with security.
So police were shouting at people. I mean, tell us a bit more about what they were saying and what the general mood of people was and how they reacted.
It was panic, really. People were very panicked. Of course, you've got to remember, most people around here are tourists. You know, the lunchtime rush is over. I was lucky enough to have a bit of a later lunch today, and I regret having that now. But it was very panicked. The police were just really screaming at people, run, run, run. There wasn't much more than that, just keep safe, run.
And what did you do, apart from, I assume, run?
Yes, I was with one of my work colleagues, and we just grabbed each other's hands and ran to the nearest building.
And where was that?
The Sky Garden.
Right, and
we ran straight down the street.
And that's where you are at the moment, is it?
We are now out of the building, but we've been advised not to go anywhere south of that road, which I believe is Fenchurch Street. So we are now with a lot of members of the public around Leadenhall Market, which is believed to be safe. There's a lot of police cordons around those streets, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, we know that the underground stations are closed, the bridge is closed, clearly. Yeah. The cordon, from what Tom Simons and John McManus, our correspondents, were telling us, is very wide. So are people tending to stay put, or are they trying to get out of the centre of town?
I think those with less understanding, who perhaps haven't been towards London Bridge, are trying to go back that way, or are trying to question police to say, what's going on, can we get that way? But of course they're being ushered in the opposite direction. Those of us with an understanding are staying put or staying north and following that advice to stay away.
I hesitate to say, but it must have been, and indeed must still be, very frightening. What was going through your mind?
Yes, well, I suppose it's a shock, isn't it? You know, I live and work in London, but there are a lot of potentially scary situations that happen that then turn out to be a false alarm or something like that. So initially I thought the best and thought perhaps it's just a small accident, and then it was only when the police started shouting that, yes, we got very shaky and we ran away.
Yes, I'm sure. And I presume that where you are and in the vicinity, I mean, how many police and emergency services can you still see?
We are on a side street at the moment, so there are no police in our direct area. but there are an awful lot of sirens going on. I was on the corner by Fenchurch Street, and they've been clearing the roads repeatedly for a number of ambulances to go up and down, which is just very frightening. You wonder how many people have been hurt.
That was Kirsten Jones speaking to us just a little earlier. We're hearing that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, is returning to number 10 Downing Street from his constituency to receive further updates on this incident. We've also received a tweet from the former Defence Minister, Tobias Ellwood. You may remember he was the man who helped tackle a terror attack outside Parliament in 2017. Now, he's tweeted that today's incident is a stark reminder of the dangerous and diverse threats we continue to face, but also of the incredible bravery and professionalism of our emergency services in so swiftly closing this incident down. The Metropolitan Police, as we know, have said that a man has been shot by officers near London Bridge in an incident which they say they're responding to as though it is terror related. Police are expected to speak in the next 5 minutes, and our correspondent Sarah Campbell is at Scotland Yard. Sarah, before we do hear what the latest update is from the police, what have they been saying so far?
Yes, well, indeed. So we're about half a mile here from London Bridge. As you say, we're expecting to hear from the Metropolitan Police, expecting to give a statement in the next few minutes. But really, up until now, they've been urging people to follow their Twitter feed. And so I'll just read you those messages, because really that's the only official information we have at the moment. It started off, police were called at 1:58 p.m. to a stabbing at a premises near to London Bridge. The emergency services attended, including officers from the Met and City Police. A man has been detained, and we believe a number of people have been injured. So over the last hour or so, that has been updated with a little bit more detail. In the last half hour, they said at this stage the circumstances relating to the incident remain unclear. However, as a precaution, we are currently responding to this incident as though it is terror related. One man has been shot by police. We'll provide further info when possible. And just in the last couple of minutes, the police have confirmed that a number of people have been stabbed. They are, as well on this Twitter feed, are urging people to use common sense and restraint in circulating pictures and videos of this incident. Of course, London is very, very busy today. It is Black Friday. There are a lot of people in the city. A lot of people were passing that on London Bridge when this incident happened and have been sharing information that they know about, sharing pictures of the incident as they saw it. But as I say, we are expecting to get further details from the Metropolitan Police in the next few minutes. They said that it would be at 4 o'clock, so we're just waiting here until somebody comes out to tell us those details. But as we know, a number of people have been stabbed. One man has been shot by police. They say as a precaution, we are currently responding to this incident as though it is terror related. So that is what we know at the moment.
Sarah, while we wait for this update from the Metropolitan Police at Scotland Yard, where you are, we have a tweet from them. As you were saying, a number of people have been stabbed. We will provide further information when possible. We also have interesting information into us from our security correspondent, Frank Gardner, who earlier was telling us that the police response to this was very much reactive and spontaneous, that they were not, as far as he is aware, responding to a known threat. Frank Gardner, our security correspondent, is saying that Whitehall officials are telling him that the identity of the suspected attacker was not initially known. An investigation is underway. So some interesting lines coming out. It was also interesting, I thought, that we're beginning to piece together, aren't we, the order of events, which it appears that this incident may have started in premises a little way away from London Bridge, and that possibly the incident itself actually ended on London Bridge, which might explain the presence of those police officers that we're watching in that piece of film there. It's 4 o'clock. You're watching BBC News. Let's just remind you of our Main story this afternoon, the Metropolitan Police say a man has been detained and a number of people have been stabbed at London Bridge in the heart of the capital. Police say the circumstances relating to the incident remain unclear, but as a precaution, they're responding to the incident as though it is terror-related. London Ambulance Service has declared a major incident. The bridge has been sealed off, and the members of the public are being directed away from the area. Emergency services are at the scene. This video was sent in to us, which appears to show a member of the public wrestling with a man on the floor. Armed police then move in, pull the passerby away, and then shots were fired at the man. And this is what we believe is the same incident, but it's from a different angle. So the video appears to show a knife being taken away as a man was being wrestled to the ground. If we just stay on this footage, you will be able to see that. So there it is, that man who is just walking away there in the dark, a coat or jacket and tie, and now running away, does appear to be holding a knife in his hand, removed from that scene. Now, we also have some footage of what appears to be a jackknifed white lorry across London Bridge. Now, armed police, as you can see here, are at the front of the lorry, at the cab, but then they start to move around the side of the lorry and towards the back, as if perhaps they're investigating the container and what might or might not be inside. You can see buses parked on the bridge. People, we've been speaking to people this afternoon who were in those buses, who were told to get out and get away from the scene as quickly as possible. Reports of the police shouting at them, just get out, get away. And the police cars there, you can see 3 police cars parked on the bridge in front of this white lorry, which, as I say, you can see is across both carriageways. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has just tweeted that he is being kept updated on the incident and wants to thank the police and emergency services for their immediate response. We've also heard within the last few moments that he's returning to 10 Downing Street from his constituency so that he can remain updated on what is happening. And Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, has tweeted, "Shocking reports from London Bridge. My thoughts are with those caught up in the incident. Thank you to the police and emergency services who are responding." Police are due to give an update from New Scotland Yard in the next few minutes. We'll bring that to you live, of course, just as soon as it gets underway. Our correspondent Sarah Campbell is at New Scotland Yard, where, as I say, we're expecting a briefing from the Metropolitan Police. In the meantime, Sarah, just remind us about what we know so far.
Yeah, obviously, as with an incident like this, there will be lots of information circulating on social media. The police have warned sort of against taking that as read, but what I can give you is the official information from the Met Police's official Twitter account, which is the best source we have at the moment. As you say, we are expecting shortly to hear from a member of the Met Police office to fill in some of those details. But what we have so far, the first message that was put out, police were called at 1:58 to a stabbing at a premises near to London Bridge. That's around half a mile away from where I am at the moment. That tweet reads, "Emergency services attended, including officers from the Met and from City Police. A man has been detained by the police and we believe a number of people to have been injured." So there have been various tweets since then. That was around an hour or so ago. Please use common sense and restraint, they're saying, in circulating pictures and videos. There are a lot of details online. 42 minutes ago, the police said at this stage the circumstances relating to the incident at London Bridge remain unclear. However, as a precaution, we are currently responding to this incident as though it is terror-related. One man has been shot by the police, and then just a few minutes ago they confirmed that a number of people have been stabbed, and the Met Police saying they're going to update as and when they have information. And as I say, we are expecting to hear from a member of the Met Police here at New Scotland Yard in the next few minutes.
Sarah, we will come back to you as soon as that starts. In the meantime, I want to bring you a statement from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. It's quite a lengthy one, but I do think it's worth reading in full. The Metropolitan Police, he has said, have confirmed that as a precaution, the horrendous incident at London Bridge is being treated as though it is terrorism related. I remain in close contact with the Metropolitan Police and am being kept updated with events. It has been confirmed that people were injured in the attack. My heart goes out to them, their families, and all affected. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, goes on to say, thank you to our brave emergency services who responded to today's horrific attack. Every day they put their lives on the line for us, running towards danger in order to keep London safe. We must and we will stay resolute in our determination to stand strong and united in the face of terror. Those who seek to attack us and divide us will never succeed. He ends by saying the London Bridge area remains closed. Please avoid the area at this time and follow Met Police for further updates, and TfL, Transport for London, that is, for travel updates. If you are near the incident, please follow the directions of any officers on the ground. And that is a statement from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. There has been a Metropolitan Police tweet about the incident in which they have said a number of people have been stabbed. We will provide further information when possible. Just to repeat that tweet from the Metropolitan Police, a number of people have been stabbed. There we go. We will provide further information when possible. So we are waiting for that statement, a further update on the stabbing attack from New Scotland Yard, from the Metropolitan Police. In the meantime, Carwen Bosch was on a bus on the bridge when the incident occurred.
So I was on the bus coming southbound over London Bridge. We just pulled away from the bus stop when the bus came to a sudden stop because there were people running across the bridge into the road, sort of looking over their shoulders and filming behind them. And we thought, well, it looked a little bit, we looked over, it looked like there was a fight going on, so sort of people tussling with each other. And then you realise it was police wrestling with one tall, bearded man. And then, I had my baby with me, so I moved her behind the stairwell to be safe. But then there was two shots, or two loud pops, I think they were gunshots, two loud pops, and I also saw a spent taser. And then the guy was lying on the floor. He then pulled his coat back, which showed that he had some sort of vest underneath. Whether it's a stab vest or, some sort of explosive vest, because the police then really quickly moved backwards away. Of course, on the bus, we're panicking because we're at this point almost as close as the police to him. And he was sort of lying there pulling his coat backwards, and the police were shouting at him and staying back from him. And there were no emergency vehicles at this point. Our side of the bridge, the traffic was still pretty much flowing. Of course, the bus stopped and radioed in and things. And then as soon as the traffic cleared, the bus driver pulled away. And when I was about 3 or 4 minutes away, then we started to hear sirens and a helicopter overhead.
My goodness, so from the sound of it, you were literally yards from where this incident unfolded.
We were on the opposite carriageway, but maybe 4 or 5 metres.
Yes, and just so that I've got all the facts here correct, Karen, you have your 1-year-old baby with you in a pram.
That's right, yeah.
Right, and then you're looking out of the window. Tell us, just rewind, because the detail that you were describing to us is absolutely extraordinary. So what was the first thing that you saw, or did you hear something first?
No, the first thing I saw was people sort of starting to run into the road, And at first you think they're just normal, annoying London pedestrians, but they looked scared, and they were running and looking over their shoulder and filming. And then it looked like there was maybe a tussle or a fight. So a few men together, all with dark jackets. And in the end, I sort of realised that they were police officers with, dark jackets, and they 3 armed police officers. They all had guns. And then one guy in a big black jacket, a tall guy with a beard. And then when I didn't quite see, there must have been a car going past. The next thing I saw, he was lying on the floor, and there were 2 loud pops.
Right. And, here you are with your baby. Was your first thought to try to get off the bus, or...?
Not really. I was scared because there may have been more terrorists. You don't know how many of them there are on the bridge. So it actually felt a bit safer inside the vehicle, which could potentially drive away with us in it. So what I did was after I heard the 2 pops, I then just tried to get her, because I saw this jacket, this vest on the guy, and I thought, if he explodes, will the baby be okay? So I just tried to get her behind the stairwell, so at least she was protected.
Yes.
And then we waited because the traffic was clearing ahead. And then as soon as there was a space, we just urged the bus driver to drive on, which he did, and dropped us off at the south end of the bridge.
We ought to just reiterate what we're hearing from the Metropolitan Police, that they're saying that the circumstances regarding this incident are at the moment unclear, but as a precaution they're responding to it as though it is terror related. We do not know, I should say, whether the people involved in this incident at the moment are terrorists. So you then all are on this bus, you shout at the driver what to drive on, and then what happened?
Then the driver did. It looked like the traffic on the bridge cleared, and he drove to the end and just stopped at the side of the road and let us all off at the south end of the bridge. And we just tried to get away from there as quickly as possible, because you don't know how many, with the last London Bridge attack, there was a few different attackers. So we just thought, let's get away from here as quickly as possible. One of the ladies on the bus with me, she said she'd seen people running out of a building with blood or stab wounds on them. So we knew something had happened on the north side, so south seemed safer.
So sorry, just say that again. What did that lady say to you? What did she say?
So one of our fellow passengers said she'd seen people coming out of a building on the north end of the bridge,
right,
with blood on them and what looked like stab wounds. So we knew something had happened at the north side, so we felt safer going towards the south, getting off that side.
Okay, so you're then, you were running, I assume. There are a group of you. Where did you go to, and were you being directed by the police? What sort of information were you being given?
Oh, well, there was no police there yet. There was only 3 officers, and they were all directly engaging with the presumably a terrorist, and there was no one else there yet. When I was on Borough High Street, I heard the first ambulance coming up Borough High Street.
Right, and what's the situation now, Karen?
So as quickly as I possibly could, I got into I only live 5 minutes away, into sort of residential, quieter streets. And before I was 3 or 4 minutes away, there was a helicopter overhead, and you could hear sirens starting to gather.
Okay, how are you feeling?
A little shaken, but so relieved to be inside the house. The baby slept through the whole thing and has no idea that I was so frightened.
That was Carwyn Bosch talking to us just a little earlier on. We've heard from the Prime Minister and Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader. During a campaign visit to Cardiff, the Liberal Democrat leader, Jo Swinson, has expressed concern at the incident at London Bridge. She said, and I'm quoting here, "Clearly we don't know the exact details of what has happened. My thoughts are with everybody who's been caught up in that incident in whatever way, including, of course, the brave police who are dealing with it with professionalism and in the way in which they do become the first responders in these difficult times." So reaction there from the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Jo Swinson. Let's just return to Scotland Yard, where we are expecting an update from the Metropolitan Police. They have said that a man has been detained and a number of people injured after a stabbing at London Bridge. They say the circumstances relating to the incident remain unclear, but as a precaution, they are responding to it as though it is terror related. We will bring you that update from the Metropolitan Police at New Scotland Yard as soon as we get it. In the meantime, these are live pictures at the scene. There is an extensive cordon around London Bridge and the surrounding area which has been evacuated. All emergency services are at the scene, police, ambulance services and the fire services, and that is the scene there in the heart of London. Now, our correspondent Andy Moore is still with us and has been monitoring the situation. And Andy, you're beginning, I think, to piece together perhaps what might have happened.
Yes, a timeline. So we know from the police that the incident began at 1:58, according to the police, in premises on the north side. And we just heard from that eyewitness saying that there were injured people coming out of a building on the north side of the bridge. Some reports suggest that might be the underground. We had a report that some staff have been injured on Monument Underground, which is about 100 yards away. It might actually be London Underground, London Bridge, another station, but certainly in premises. And then we saw the end of the incident in the various videos, which was probably about 10 minutes later. And so that is why people initially were surprised that the police were there on the scene so quickly, because the alarm was actually raised sometime in advance of that. And that's why the armed police were able to get there so quickly. So what we're hearing from police is that one person has been shot and detained. They talk about a stabbing. They talk about a number of people injured. We haven't got any details on that, but we have had disturbing eyewitness reports about people being seriously injured. We had some reports of people being taken away under a cover. We don't know if that means fatalities or not. We just don't know at this stage, but there's certainly very worrying reports. We've also had that very strong statement from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, talking about an horrendous attack. He reiterated the police position that they don't know at the moment, they're keeping an open mind, but certainly his language suggested that he was regarding it as a terrorist incident and that he was calling upon all Londoners to pull together in connection with this incident.
Yes, and it was interesting, and I think worth reminding ourselves of that tweet from the former Defence Minister Tobias Ellwood, Andy, who of course helped tackle a terror attack outside Parliament in 2017. He tweeted that today's incident was a stark reminder of the dangerous and diverse threats we continue to face, but also of the incredible bravery and professionalism of our emergency services in so swiftly closing this incident down. We've been watching pictures. I don't know if you have any further details about this white lorry that appears jackknifed across the carriageway of the bridge.
No, we don't. I mean, as I said, I was talking about incidents on the north side of the bridge. This is towards more the centre of the bridge after the traffic has built up. It may be that this is unrelated. Police know there's an ongoing apparent terrorist incident. There appears to be a vehicle jackknifed across the bridge. You would be obviously very interested in that vehicle. So it may be that this is unrelated and the police are just very cautious and want to know what's going on with that vehicle. We talked about the tribute to the emergency services. I'm struck by the bravery of the passers-by who obviously intervened. I've heard reports of passers-by intervening with sticks to try and bring down this knifeman. They were certainly wrestling with him, struggling with him before the police arrived. We saw that extraordinary video of one city gentleman in a suit with a knife in his hand, obviously in connection, in cooperation with his colleagues. They've managed to disarm the knifeman and he's retreating from the scene with what appears to be a kitchen knife, a knife with a blade about 6 inches long. So it is clear to me that the general public were tackling this knifeman before the police arrived.
As we've been saying, Andy, a police cordon is now in place with the bridge and indeed part of Borough High Street shut off. Police on the scene are saying there's absolutely no access under any circumstances, and we certainly have seen vans of police entering the cordon from the south side, as you were just describing it there, and London Bridge Station has also been closed. Some frightening witness testimonies, clearly a very frightening incident. But as you say, the emergency service is very quickly on the scene.
That's right. I mean, to go back, as you referred to, some of that very frightening eyewitness evidence we heard from the lady who was on the bus with her baby. She talked about the armed police being moved in, and she said the man on the ground, she described him as tall and bearded. He was dressed in black clothing. She said that after he was shot, he appeared to be pulling back his clothing to reveal a vest of some sort. She couldn't see what it was, but she said it might have been a stab-proof vest. She was certainly concerned that it might be an explosive device of some sort because she was trying to retreat to a safe area on the bus. Certainly the police also had the concern that it might be an explosive device of some sort, because immediately after shooting that man, they retreated to a safe distance. Normally they would try and see the condition of the man, try to administer some first aid. On this occasion, they were obviously concerned for their own safety. And it's worth reminding people, of course, that London Bridge was the scene of a terror attack in 2017 when 8 people were killed. That involved an attack initially by a vehicle on the bridge when several people were run down. And then the terrorists went into Borough Market and attacked people with knives before being shot dead very quickly by armed police. Now, those terrorists had fake explosive devices there too. And there are some similarities with this incident. The fact that a knife was involved, stabbing was involved, that it was resolved by police shooting the person dead, and that maybe there may have been some sort of explosive device, whether fake or not, involved. So unfortunate memories of that 2017 incident, but there have not been many terrorist attacks since then. Of course, there were a spate of terrorist attacks in 2017. And in fact, earlier this month, the terror level, the official terror level, was reduced one notch.
Yes. Andy, stay with us, but we are still waiting for that news conference, that update from New Scotland Yard. Just to remind you what we know so far, that the Metropolitan Police say a man has been detained and a number of people injured after a stabbing at London Bridge. Police say the circumstances relating to the incident remain unclear. People clearly approaching the microphone there. Let's listen in.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. My name's Neil Bassier. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Specialist Operations in the Met. I can confirm that at approximately 2 p.m. today, Friday the 29th of November, police were called to a stabbing at a premises near to London Bridge EC1. Emergency services attended, including officers from the City of London Police and the Metropolitan Police. A male suspect was shot by specialist armed officers from the City of London Police, and I can confirm that this suspect died at the scene. A number of other people received injuries during this incident. As soon as we can provide further updates on their condition, we will. And our heartfelt sympathies go out to everybody who's been involved in this and is anxiously waiting for information on their loved ones. As soon as we can get that information, we will get it to you. As you would expect, due to the nature of the incident, we responded as though this was terrorist related. I'm now in a position to confirm that it has been declared a terrorist incident. We are working jointly with the City of London Police as we continue to respond. Officers from the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command are now leading this investigation, but I must stress we retain an open mind as to any motive. It would be inappropriate to speculate further at this time. Due to reports that the suspect may have had an explosive device, specialist officers also attended the scene and wide cordons are in place to ensure there remains no further danger to the public. However, I can confirm at this time we believe a device that was strapped to the body of the suspect is a hoax explosive device. Officers continue to carry out meticulous searches in the area to ensure there is no outstanding threat to the public. Those extensive cordons will remain in place for a considerable time, and I would ask the public, please continue to avoid the area. Public safety is obviously our top priority. We will be enhancing police patrols both in the city and across London. I would ask anyone with information, image or footage of the incident that can be shared with our investigation team to do so on the UK Police Image Appeal website. I would also ask the public to continue to remain vigilant and report any concerns that they have to the police. I know I would ordinarily take questions. I'm not going to take questions at this time. The Prime Minister has asked for a personal briefing, and I'll be heading with the Commissioner of the Met to Downing Street immediately. Thank you for your patience. We will update you again when we can.
So that was Neil Basu, the head of the UK counter-terrorism and Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, confirming that a man was shot and the suspect died at the scene on London Bridge. He said that the incident has now been declared a terror incident, and also that the suspect had what appeared to be some sort of vest, which was a cause for concern as well. I'm joined now, I think, by our correspondent Sarah Campbell, who is at New Scotland Yard, where we were just listening to that briefing from Neil Basu from the Metropolitan Police. Worth you just reminding us of exactly what he said, Sarah?
Yeah. Yes, indeed. So 2 p.m. is when the incident started, or certainly when the police were called to attend this incident near London Bridge. They confirmed that it was a male suspect. He was shot by City of London armed police. They confirmed that the suspect died at the scene, and also that there were a number of others injured, clarifying that they don't know yet, or they're putting together the information on those people injured, and as soon as there is any more information on those others, the Metropolitan Police will let us know. The other main headline from that press conference was that this has been confirmed as a terrorist incident. The City of London Police investigating along. It's being led by the Metropolitan's counter-terrorism group. They say at the moment they're keeping a motive. They're keeping open-minded as to what the motive there might be. Other things that you've been speaking about on the air, reports that this suspect was wearing some sort of suicide vest. The police said that there was a device strapped to the man's body, but when they investigated it, this was confirmed to be a hoax device, a hoax explosive device. Neil Basu reiterated that there are searches still being carried out in the area of London Bridge to see whether there are any other threats. Members of the public are being advised to stay away from London Bridge, from that area. Those searches will continue for some considerable time. Also asking for any members of the public who have any video or any photographs of the incident, and of course we know there are many on social media. They are being asked to send those to the Metropolitan Police to help with their investigation. They're also asking members of the public to remain vigilant at this time. Of course, this is Black Friday today. It's very busy in the capital. There are lots of people around, and clearly this incident will be a huge concern to a great deal of people. So people asked to stay away from the London Bridge area as those searches are continuing. But just to give you those headlines, I think once again from that press conference, a male suspect was shot. He died at the scene. A number of other people have been injured in this incident, and it has been officially declared a terrorist incident.
Okay, Sarah Campbell, our correspondent there at New Scotland Yard with our update from the Metropolitan Police. We'll be back with Sarah, of course, if there are any further updates. In the meantime, let's join my colleague Tom Simons, who is in the London Bridge area, clearly where you are Tom, the area is completely cordoned off, as we can see emergency vehicles behind you there. And interesting that we now have confirmation that this has been declared a terror incident.
Yes, I think they would have looked at the body, sadly, of the man and looked what he was wearing, probably been through his pockets, tried to work out from anybody who saw this right there on the ground what he was doing, and as you've heard, they've decided to declare this as a terrorist incident with the caveat that they can't say anything about the motive for the attack, and that's really important that we don't go further than what the police are saying at this stage. And if it's true and it is a terrorist attack, then clearly this is, well, we're here again, aren't we? We're in a situation where this city is dealing with an attack presumably on people just passing by or in the area working or shopping or eating or drinking in an area where there's been a terrorist attack before. 2017, the attack on the south end of London Bridge and Borough Market, an area of food stalls just south of there. The police, as you can see here, that this is a huge cordon actually. They've been pushing us back much of the afternoon. When we arrived, we were a lot closer, we were pushed back, and as I was passing, one of the officers said that we should consider where we went for cover if needed. So that made it clear to me that in the early stages the police weren't sure whether there was anybody else out there who might cause a threat to the public. And it's also, let's just look at the actions of the firearms officers. Officers we now know were City of London police rather than Metropolitan Police. We are actually in the City of London here. Now, if this group of men or people holding down this man on the pavement were trying to hold on to him, he was then shot by the police. Well, the police have the right to use reasonable force to protect public life, their life and the lives of people in the area. So regardless of whether that was, and we now know it wasn't, a suicide vest, a bomb vest of any sort, they had the right to take the shot and to put him out of action. And the other thing to say is that we have seen fake suicide vests used before. In London Bridge, in the London Bridge attack, the three attackers were wearing some sort of improvised belts with water bottles to make it look like they were carrying explosives. It's obviously a very scary thing for those involved in this incident, for that group of people trying to hold him down while the police arrived, for them to have to take on a Friday afternoon here in the City of London.
Tom, as you're speaking, we're watching live pictures of the area, of the bridge, taken from the helicopter. Can you give us a little bit more sense of what is happening in the surrounding area?
Yeah, now clearly we can't see too much of it, and I'm pulling this together from other reporters we have out and about, from pictures we're being sent and that sort of thing. But it's a pretty standard cordon. So you can see here this road, which is a major road heading towards London Bridge, which is down there behind those police vehicles you can see behind me. We have a police helicopter up that's almost certainly over the bridge. Now what they're doing is they're making sure that there is nobody else in the area who will pose a threat to people. And there will be firearms officers brought in all over the place. There'll be proper sweeps of the area. We saw in the London Bridge attack teams of firearms officers going from street to street, from bar to bar in this area. There aren't many houses, checking the offices, checking everywhere that there could be somebody hiding. They also, of course, need to be concerned about vehicles. There's a lorry on the bridge that they will need to have a look at and make sure that is not in some way involved. Of course, people, when they're in a traffic jam in the middle of this sort of thing, just get out of the area, so it might well be nothing to do with it. And whenever this sort of thing happens, you sort of see knock-on alerts going on around the city. There was a period when Oxford Circus was partly closed. There were reports of an explosion at London Bridge. None of that was anything to do, it wasn't an explosion, and none of the reports were anything to do, as far as we know, with what has happened here. But the police have to be sure that this is over, and that's why the cordons are here and why it's such a big operation for them.
Have you had a chance to talk to anyone, Tom? I just wondered what the mood was there, because we've talked to several eyewitnesses over the course of the afternoon, and it's clearly been terribly frightening for those people who were involved.
Yeah, for those people involved, this will be something they'll remember for the rest of their lives. It's quite possible that although people have been stabbed, and the police have said that they prevented further loss of life. So there may be some incredible stories of heroism that come out of this. Certainly those people holding him down, that last man we see in one of the videos, everybody else has got out of the way. He is clearly holding on to this man to stop something happening. At least that's the way it looks. It doesn't look to me like he's a plainclothes police officer, but it's possible. Terrorist suspects can be followed sometimes, though we hear from our security expert, Gordon Carrera, that this wasn't part of a planned police operation. But he was holding that man down, and then he is almost dragged out of the way by the armed officers so that they can take their shots. But obviously there will be a lot of people who weren't involved in the incident itself, but would be involved in all of this. And I have to say, they tend to take it in their stride. People just get on with their lives. They actually want to know how to get home and how to get to their offices and to the pub, frankly, when this sort of thing goes on. We have seen enough terrorist incidents in London that we've learnt to live with it.
Tom Simons, we'll leave it there for now, but thank you very much for that update. We know that the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has returned from his constituency to Downing Street, and we also know that the head of UK counter-terrorism, Neil Basu, is on his way there to give him a briefing on what's happened. Let's give you an update on this story this afternoon, because police have now declared a terrorist incident after a man was shot dead at the scene and a number of people stabbed. This was at London Bridge in the heart of the capital. In a news conference within the last hour, police said a hoax explosive device was strapped to the suspect's body. The bridge has been sealed off and members of the public are being directed away from the area. Emergency services are at the scene. This video was sent in to us. Now, this appears to show a member of the public wrestling with a man on the floor. Armed police then seem to move in, pull the passerby away, and then shots were fired at the man. This is what we believe to be the same incident, but it's from the other side, from a different angle, if you like. And the video again appears to show the brawl at that end. But if you keep watching closely on the left-hand side, you will see a man in a dark jacket start to move away. There he is there. Can you see him? And in his hand it seems to be a large knife that he is taking away as that man is being wrestled with there on the bridge. Other footage has emerged of what appears to be a jackknife lorry across London Bridge. This, of course, may be completely unrelated to the incident. We simply don't know at the minute, but you can see armed police surrounding the vehicle, and then if you watch the figures closely, you'll see that they start to move alongside the vehicle and look in the back of the container, perhaps to ascertain what might or might not be inside. You can see buses parked on the side of the bridge there. We know from eyewitnesses that we've spoken to that they were ordered to get off buses as quickly as they could by police, and you can see those three police cars parked on the bridge in front of the van. But as I say, we don't know how this van relates to the incident at the moment. The Prime Minister has tweeted that he is being kept updated on the incident and wants to thank the police and emergency services for their immediate response. We know the Prime Minister has returned now to Downing Street for that update with the head of the UK counter-terrorism police. And Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, has tweeted, "Shocking reports from London Bridge. My thoughts are with those caught up in the incident. Thank you to the police and emergency services who are responding." The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has also released a statement thanking the emergency services who responded to today's horrific attack, saying that they put their lives on the line for us, running towards danger in order to keep London safe. The Mayor went on to say, "We must stand strong in the face of terror, and that those who seek to attack us and divide us will never succeed." and an updated statement now from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who, as I say, has returned from his constituency and is now in number 10 Downing Street. He has tweeted, "I want to thank the emergency services and members of the public for their immense bravery in responding to this suspected terrorist attack at London Bridge." The Prime Minister goes on to say, "Boris Johnson, this is an appalling incident and all my thoughts are with the victims and their families." My colleague Ben Brown is at the scene and he joins us now. And what are you hearing and seeing, Ben?
Well, Rebecca, this area is not in lockdown as you would expect at the moment. You can see bridge behind me, lots of buses and coaches just parked there, completely empty. It's quite an eerie sight. And buildings around here on lockdown, all the streets around here cordoned off as well. It's very difficult actually to get this far. And I suppose for people who live and work around London Bridge, all of this brings back horrific memories of 2 years ago and that attack that left 8 people dead, with the 3 attackers shot dead by armed police on that occasion. We don't know much more than you've just been outlining. The Metropolitan Police saying that the suspected attacker has been shot. And as you've seen on that social media video, a number of people piling on top of the attacker and trying to wrestle him to the ground and then being pulled off him by armed police. Extraordinary scenes, really. And they were pulled off almost one by one. And then that shot was fired by one of the armed officers. The police telling us that they are treating this as terror related, certainly for the time being, as a precaution. The London Ambulance Service describing this as a major incident. In terms of the number of casualties, so far we've been told 5, but that may be changing. But at the moment, 5 casualties, the attacker shot, and this, of course, a major incident. And a lot of people around here have been telling us that the police did respond extremely quickly, both City of London Police and Metropolitan Police joining forces and responding to this emergency really very quickly indeed. Of course, they are on high alert in areas of central London, like London Bridge. But this whole incident causing, as you would expect, chaos. It's just approaching rush hour now. London Bridge station is closed, no trains running through there. The roads around here closed as well. We've seen lots of people leaving work looking pretty confused because it's quite hard to walk down any street without running into a police cordon. But that's the latest from here at London Bridge.
OK, Ben Brown, for now, thank you. The White House has said that President Trump has been briefed on the attack at London Bridge. That is a spokesperson for the president. We know that Boris Johnson is at number 10 Downing Street and being briefed on the incident by the head of UK counter-terrorism policy and the Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Neil Basu. It is just worth reminding ourselves what he said. He said that there were fears that a man was wearing a bomb vest, an explosive device, and specialist officers, when they attended the scene, ensured that there would be no further danger to the public. But he was able to confirm that the device was strapped to the body of the suspect was a hoax explosive device. But we did hear that Neil Basu, the head of the UK counter-terrorism policy, had said that it is now, the incident is confirmed as a terrorist incident. He said that police were called at around 2 o'clock this afternoon to a stabbing at a premises near London Bridge. And we understand that one person has been killed. Let's head over to New Scotland Yard now, where I understand we may be waiting for another update, either from the police or possibly from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. Obviously, this is a fast developing story. I think our correspondent, Sarah Campbell, is there. No, here is the Mayor of London.
The Metropolitan Police have confirmed that the horrendous stabbing at London Bridge has now been declared as a terrorist incident. I'm in close contact with senior officers here at New Scotland Yard and have been fully kept updated with events and have been kept updated this afternoon. It has been confirmed that a number of people were injured in the attack, some seriously. My heart goes out to them, their families and all those affected. As soon as it's possible to provide an update on their condition, the Met Police will do so. I'd ask you all to please respect the privacy of those affected. Emergency service responders attended the scene, including officers from the City of London and Metropolitan Police. A male suspect was shot by specialist armed officers from the City of London Police and died at the scene. I want to thank our brave emergency services who responded to today's horrific attack. Every day they put their lives on the line for us, running towards danger in order to keep us safe. I would also like to thank members of the public who risked their own safety this afternoon. They are the best of us. Terrorism is cowardly and evil. We must and we will stand united and resolute in the face of terror. Those who seek to attack us and divide us will never succeed. I'd ask all Londoners to remain vigilant and report anything suspicious to the police. I'm happy to take some questions.
There was a big van that was parked across the road. Obviously, images similar to what we saw on London Bridge a couple of years ago. Do you know anything more about the role of that vehicle?
Well, I've been kept updated all afternoon, but I think it's important for the Assistant Commissioner Neil Basu to answer specific questions about that and the investigation. It's really important that police have the time to carry investigations and they will answer questions in due course.
Mr. Khan, can I ask, from the video footage that's been circulated, it's clear that members of the public got involved very quickly, it would appear. What do you say? Could you expand on these people that clearly have gone above and beyond, potentially, heroes here today?
Well, firstly, can I say, anybody who's got images of this afternoon, either caught on their phone or other devices, please share that with the police. There is a website set up where you can share those images, and it's really important you do so. Also, I'd ask you to respect the identity of the armed officers, and please don't put in the public domain their identity. But also, what's remarkable about the images we've seen is the breathtaking heroism of members of the public who literally ran towards danger, not knowing what confronted them. We do know from the statement given by the Assistant Commissioner Neil Basu that there appears to have been a device on the suspect. Members of the public didn't realise at the time that was a hoax device, and they really are the best of us. Another example of the bravery and heroism of ordinary Londoners running towards danger, risking their own personal safety to try and save others. And I want to say thank you to them on behalf of all Londoners, but also because it shows the best of us.
So, can I ask you, you're here again outside Scotland Yard just a couple of years after you did this 4 times. How does it affect you personally as Mayor of a city that seems to be where the terrorism threat has not gone down?
Look, I'm Mayor of the greatest city in the world. One of our strengths is our diversity, but we do know there are people out there who hate our diversity, who hate what we stand for, and are trying to seek to divide us. What was amazing about today is we saw in the one individual, the suspect, the worst of humanity, but we also saw in the response from members of the public, but also our emergency services, the very best of humanity. And the message I want to send, not just to Londoners, not just to the visitors to our city, but around the world, is we are resolute, we stand united in the face of terrorism, and we will not allow anybody to divide us.
What do you feel as Mayor, though, when you get that call, when you hear another incident of the seriousness?
Look, I know, speaking to colleagues around the world, mayors of other great cities, that we're all targets for terrorists. The fact is, since the 4 terrorist incidents in 2017, because of the excellent work of the police and the security services, and because of the intelligence provided by members of the public, we've thwarted more than 20 attempts at terrorism on innocent citizens. And what's really important is that we all remain vigilant. If anybody sees anything suspicious, please report it to the police. Err on the side of caution. I'd rather people over-report to the police and the experts than under-report. but it's also really important that we allow the police to carry out the investigations, and also I'd ask the members of the press to please respect the privacy of all those who have been injured today and their families as well.
Is the threat level likely to be raised?
In practical terms, I just wonder what does that mean for people going about their lives in London? How frightened should people be? This is Christmas time, running up to Christmas. You know, what practically do people need to do and know?
Well, look, we know that a couple of weeks ago the threat levels were reduced from severe to substantial. We also know one of the things that terrorists try to do is to disrupt our way of life and to stop us going about our normal business. Today's a day when many of our shops will be extremely busy, and we know, unfortunately, because of this terrorist attack, travel's been disrupted in London. At London Bridge, the trains and the tubes are still not stopping at London Bridge, and many of the buses have been diverted. The advice from the police and the counter-terror experts is this appears to be an isolated incident. The police aren't looking for anybody else. If that changes, of course, the police would let people know. But I'd remind members of the public that we've been here before. In previous decades, our city has been under attack from terrorists. One of the things that we've always been successful at doing is standing resolute and not allowing terrorists to disrupt our way of life, not simply in going about our business as we approach Christmas, but also not allowing anybody to divide our communities. It's really important that we as Londoners stand shoulder to shoulder with one another, but stand resolute in the face of a terrorist or an individual or others who seek to divide us.
Mr. Khan, will the threat level be raised again now?
Look, JTEC always review threat levels. It's a regular thing they review. Colleagues will be aware it was reviewed recently and reduced from severe to substantial. JTEC and others will constantly keep these things under review, and it's really important that we recognise that this was one individual and that there was huge bravery from members of the public as well as the first responders. But at this time, my thoughts and prayers are with all those injured and those affected by the incident this afternoon. Thank you all very much.
So that was a statement from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, speaking there outside New Scotland Yard. He confirmed that the stabbing is a terrorist incident. He said a number of people had been injured, some seriously, and he reiterated that police had shot dead a man on London Bridge. Sarah Campbell, we did hear her voice there asking Sadiq Khan questions there. She joins us from New Scotland Yard, and it was striking, Sarah, how he praised the breathtaking heroism, as he put it, of the members of the public who ran towards the suspect.
Yes, absolutely. He obviously said a thank you to the brave emergency services. Yes, but as you say, he said thank you to members of the public. He says who risked their own lives. I mean, it's obviously very early days, but looking at the pictures, the film that's been posted on social media, it does appear that a number of members of the public really did put their lives on the line, as the Mayor of London said just there. Of course, we know now that there was a suicide vest, a hoax suicide vest strapped to the man's body, but presumably those people who were tackling him on the ground didn't know that at the time. The Mayor there talked about breathtaking heroism, running into danger, said incidents like this bring out the best in us. He said he saw the very best of humanity today. So yes, as we say, praising the emergency services. It was City of London armed police who shot the suspect dead on London Bridge, but he'd clearly been tackled by members of the public, and as we say there, the Mayor there praising their heroism, and I'm sure more details will be coming out over the next few minutes, the next few hours, as to what exactly went on London Bridge. Other things that the London Mayor said, obviously talked about the fact that there's going to be huge disruption. London Bridge, the station remains closed. It's a port for many people to get home on a Friday. As I've said, it's Black Friday, so London is probably busier than usual. The streets are packed, and many of those people will be wondering now how they're going to get home. The Mayor saying that people need to remain vigilant, reiterating that plea from the police for people to send in any photographs, any videos, any information that they might have relating to that incident. Of course, the London Bridge area remains closed off. The sense is that the situation is now safe, if you like. They're not looking for anybody else, but obviously those searches are very important to make sure that any information crucial to the investigation is found. And of course, again, logistically, that means huge problems for people who live and work in and around the London Bridge area, because that is an area to be avoided at the moment. But certainly, again, the headlines really from the Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London. Thank you to the emergency services who dealt with the situation, but a huge thank you to those people who put their lives on the line.
I was struck, Sarah, as well by the question you raised that, you know, we're in the run-up to Christmas now, and this is going to be very frightening, not only to people who live in the capital, but also to people who are coming to visit it over the festive season, isn't it?
It's only 2.5 years since London Bridge, that very area, was the subject of a horrendous terrorist attack back in June 2017, in which 8 people were killed, of course the 3 perpetrators killed as well. And for many people in that area, this will be bringing back very unwelcome memories of that. But absolutely, for lots of people coming to London, thinking about Christmas shopping, you know, thinking about spending New Year here, perhaps this is a memory that, a thought that they would not want to be having at the moment, that perhaps this is a dangerous place to come to. Now, what the Mayor said very clearly is, we've been here before, he said, and we must stand resolute. There are people, he said, out there who do hate diversity, but incidents like this also bring out the best of humanity. So very much trying to say, this issue has been dealt with, and hoping that you know, people are going to be able to go about their daily lives. But of course, when an incident like this happens, it does what a terrorist-related incident does. It spreads terror. People this evening will be extremely frightened at what's happened.
Sarah Campbell at New Scotland Yard, thank you so much for that update. I want to now bring you a statement that has just been released from the White House, saying that President Trump has been briefed on the attack at London Bridge and is monitoring the situation. And the United States strongly condemns all horrific acts of violence on innocent people, and we pledge our full support to our ally, the United Kingdom. Our correspondent Andy Moore has been following the story with us all afternoon. I think we've also got some live pictures that we can look at, Andy, and I think it's worth you piecing together what we think the order of events might have been.
Well, police say the incident started at 1:58 in premises. They're not specific, but they talk about premises near London Bridge. Eyewitnesses talk about people emerging from a building on the north side of the bridge who were injured in some way. And then we saw the terrorist, suspected terrorist, being tackled by members of the public. And that was some time later. The shots were actually probably about 10 minutes after that. Breathtaking heroism, we heard from Sadiq Khan. I've heard accounts of people tackling that suspected terrorist with sticks, with fire extinguishers. We believe one of those people, at least, may have been injured in trying to tackle the terrorist. And of course, they knew he was armed with at least 1 knife, possibly 2. We can see some of the members of the public here tackling the knifeman. In fact, the last person is hauled off by the armed police before they shoot the suspect. Our thoughts turn now to those who are injured. This is some more video of the same incident. You can see in the distance the members of the public tackling the knifeman. You'll be able to see at some stage, just a little bit later on, somebody has taken a knife, just 1 knife, away from the terrorist. I've seen images of another knife. And if you just look on the left-hand side in the distance there, you can see a man running away on the left-hand side. In his right hand is a knife. And that appears to be just a passerby in a suit taking that dangerous weapon away from the scene. As I said, our thoughts turn now to the injured. And we heard for the first time there from Sadiq Khan that some of those have been seriously injured. I've seen images of a woman being taken away on a makeshift stretcher. I've seen images of the ambulance service appearing to give CPR to somebody on the ground.
OK, Andy Moore, our correspondent, thank you for that update. As British police have confirmed, they've shot dead a man on London Bridge. You're watching BBC News.
Tonight at 5, police declare a major terrorist incident in central London. A man has been shot dead by armed officers after an incident near London Bridge. Police say the male suspect was wearing a hoax explosive device on his body. He died at the scene.
A male suspect was shot by specialist armed officers from the City of London Police, and I can confirm that this suspect died at the scene.
Officers were called to reports of a stabbing just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. A number of people were injured. The Mayor of London has praised the public response.
What's remarkable about the images we've seen is the breathtaking heroism of members of the public who literally ran towards danger, not knowing what confronted them.
I'm Ben Brown. I'll be reporting live from one of the police cordons close to London Bridge. This whole area is in lockdown at the moment, causing rush hour chaos.
And this is the scene tonight at London Bridge. Police in the last half an hour urging people to keep away from the cordon that you can just see in place there on a very busy Friday night. We will have the very latest from there tonight. Hello, a very good evening. Welcome to the BBC News at 5. I'm Jane Hill. Our main story tonight. Police have declared a major terrorist incident in central London after a man was shot by armed officers attending an incident near London Bridge. Police have said in the last hour that a male suspect died at the scene and that a hoax explosive device was found on his body. Well, in terms of what we know so far, officers were called to reports of a stabbing just before 2 o'clock this afternoon. A number of people were injured and the London Ambulance Service declared a major incident. Well, this video was sent to us here at the BBC. It appears to show a member of the public wrestling with a man on the floor. Armed police then move in, they pull the civilian away, and then shots were fired. Well, this is what we believe is the same incident from a different angle. The Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command is now leading the investigation. We begin tonight with the latest on the afternoon's events from Caroline Davis.
Around 2 p.m. in central London, what looks at first to passers-by to be a fight starts on the north side of London Bridge. Filmed from the upper deck of a bus, several people appear to be pinning down a man. Armed police run across the bridge. Viewed from the other side of the road, the police appear to pull one man in the jeans away. Moments later, the policeman fires at the man on the floor. One BBC reporter was on the bridge at the time.
A number of shots were fired at this man. Police have now cleared the bridge. Everybody has been told to move back. I'm now on the northern side of the bridge, but there are more shots going on. I can't see what's happening now because we've been moved out of the way.
Another eyewitness was on a terrace overlooking the bridge.
All of a sudden, we saw some police cars, and then moments later, heard two gunshots, which, well, we thought it was gunshots. We thought it was fireworks, not entirely sure. And then a couple minutes later, then I just heard a lot more gunshots, and then people started to run.
Office workers and tourists were evacuated from the bridge, while buses and cars remained stuck in a backlog. The police erected a wide cordon around the area. Speaking earlier, they confirmed that a number of people had been stabbed and that one man has been shot by the police. They declared it a terrorist incident. The Prime Minister Boris Johnson tweeted that he was being kept updated on the incident and thanked the police and all the emergency services for their immediate response. The Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn also tweeted his thanks to the police and emergency services, calling the reports shocking. Mayor of London Sadiq Khan also added his gratitude and said that we must and we will stay resolute in our determination to stand strong in the face of terror. The details of what happened on the bridge, the exact number of people injured and how seriously is still not entirely clear as the investigation continues. Caroline Davis, BBC News.
Well, our security correspondent Gordon Carrera is with me first tonight. And in fact, you were down in the area a little earlier. So first, give us a sense of what you saw, Gordon.
Yes, I was there within about half an hour, 45 minutes of the incident. And there was a cordon. You could see all the activity, but I also spoke to an eyewitness who'd seen the shots being fired. He said around about 9 minutes past 2, he thought that he'd seen the individual, he'd seen a knife, and then he'd seen quite a large number of officers and those shots being fired at the individual who has since died. We understand now from a statement from the police that those shots were fired by City of London armed officers, killing that person who is believed to be involved in that incident.
And again, what we saw, I think, is a very swift response by police, by emergency services. Is this, again, a sign that there is readiness, there is such a plan of action for just such an event as this?
I think that's right. I mean, if from what, it's still a little bit unclear, all the timelines. It looks like the first call to the emergency services was around about 2 o'clock when it started, and the witness I spoke to said the shots were fired about 10 past 2. So pretty quickly, police were on the scene precisely because it is the kind of event that they have been prepared for. We've obviously seen before at London Bridge and in other places. There was no intelligence this was coming. It came out of the blue in that sense. You can tell because the threat level was lowered a few weeks ago. And also members of the public do seem to have been involved in restraining this individual, as we saw in some of that footage on the ground, then being pulled off by the police officers so the police officers could shoot them. And the reason why it appears they were so keen to shoot them rather than simply detain them was because that person may have had what looked like an explosive vest on them. But in fact, it was fake, we've been told by the police. But that sight would have clearly alarmed police if they thought there was that possibility. And that's often why they will take a lethal shot against an individual if they think there is a further threat to life to other people from that person.
Yes, and even the existence of that, again, that speaks to the bravery of any individuals who got involved, which is why the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been pointing that up.
Yeah, breathtaking heroism, he said, and we certainly have seen some of that from the pictures we've seen. We don't know the extent of any casualties yet. We do know that they appear to be serious, according to what officials have said, which took place in a building on one side, on the north side of the bridge, and then it looks as if the person then must have come out and gone across the bridge. Still waiting to hear more details about that. The police, the security service will likely be examining the body now of the attacker very carefully for any evidence and any information, trying to establish his identity, trying to establish if they knew anything about him, if there are any links, connections, any kind of other people out there who might be at large, who might pose a residual threat. That will be an urgent priority for them as they go forward.
And just a final thought for now, Gordon, in terms of, again, the Met saying we are declaring this a terrorist incident, but we're maintaining an open mind. Now, what does that actually mean?
Well, it looks like a terrorist incident to them. That's what it means, and they have to treat it as that. Just given the modus operandi of this attacker, the use of a knife, the use of a fake explosive vest, those are all the typical things we've seen in the past from attackers often linked to so-called Islamic State. Of course, they cannot be absolutely sure about that until they identify the individual, until they research a bit more about his background, until they fully understand it. So they've got to introduce an element of caution, but clearly that is what they are looking at for the moment, and they're just leaving themselves just that possibility. It could be something else, but certainly it looks like, as they've called it, a terrorist incident.
Gordon Carrera, for now, our security correspondent, thank you very much indeed. Just to tell you that we are expecting a statement from Boris Johnson in the next few minutes, we are told, so we will bring you that as and when we get it. But for now, we will go straight to the scene itself and go to my colleague Ben Brown, who is there. Ben.
Yeah, Jane, well, there's controlled chaos around here, close to London Bridge at the moment, as you would imagine. We're right next to one of the police cordons. There's lots of police cordons sealing off streets and roads right around London Bridge. London Bridge Station itself completely closed off, no trains running through there. We've been looking at the bridge, and buses and coaches that were on the bridge at the time just stationary, empty, and the whole area, many buildings in lockdown. Let's just show you the scene actually as commuters from the city try to make their way home. Because London Bridge is closed, they're all being filtered down little lanes like St Swithin's Lane here. You can see them crowding down, and many of them not quite sure which way to go to get home. But Cannon Street's just behind me, so they're heading for Cannon Street Station at the moment. Still a huge amount of police activity at the moment. We're seeing police cars roaring up and down the roads. We've seen police boats on the river and helicopters as well. As you've been saying, the police treating this for the moment as a terror-related incident, and the London Ambulance saying this is a major incident. Let me talk now to John McManus, my BBC colleague, a BBC reporter who just happened to be in the area at the time, and you saw it all as it unfolded, John. Just tell us what you were doing, why you were here, and then what you saw.
Quite a surreal incident, Ben. I was crossing London Bridge from the south side of the Thames to the north sometime after 2 o'clock. I think it was about 10 past 2 this afternoon when I noticed a few people suddenly running very quickly past me, going in the opposite direction. I then looked across the road to the western side of the bridge, and I could see what appeared to be what I thought was a fight going on, which people around me thought was a fight as well. There was some shouting going on, and then I saw that there was what appeared to be a scrum with lots of people jumping onto somebody on the pavement on the other side of the bridge from me. They suddenly jumped up and started running away very quickly, and then realised that they were armed police just in front of me, training their guns on this person who was on that side of the bridge. We were all told to clear off the bridge immediately, which we began to do, and as I was doing that, 2 shots rang out. Now, I didn't see the guns fired, I didn't see the actual impact, but after those shots had been fired, that person who'd been on that other side of the bridge lay prone on the bridge, and we've learnt now from the police that the suspect died at the scene. We were all cleared away from the bridge very quickly. There was some panic, but people followed the police's orders pretty clearly, and as we were pushed away from the bridge, where the bridge was out of sight, I heard what appeared to be several more shots also ring out, but we were pushed very far back, hundreds of metres away from the bridge, and I assume the same happened on the south side of the bridge as well. So quite a sudden incident, seemed to be over very, very quickly, and then of course, as you say, the area was closed down, there are police cordons everywhere, the traffic brought to a halt, and hundreds of people pushed away from the bridge and right their way up through the City of London.
And what runs through your mind when you're hearing what are clearly shots and when you're seeing all that panic and chaos?
Well, it was very surreal because you didn't quite know what was going on. There were several people, as I say, suddenly running past me. You thought, are they running towards London Bridge Station? It's a mainline station. Maybe they're about to miss a train. And then you realise something else is going on. And there was what appeared to be what I thought at first was just this fight. Then it suddenly turns into something much, much more serious. To see, I think there were 2 police officers with their guns trained on somebody on the bridge was surreal. I don't remember feeling scared. I remember obeying the police orders immediately to get off the bridge as fast as possible, as did all the people who were around me. And remember that bridge, one of the most well-known bridges in London. Lots of tourists go there to get views of Tower Bridge, which is just downriver. There are many people there who are taking photos, who are there seeing the sights. I think you can see the dome of St Paul's Cathedral from there. So many tourists on the bridge as well, who I suspect were probably very frightened and a bit like me at the time, unsure of what exactly was going on.
And John, from what you could see, the police seemed to react very quickly indeed to this.
They seemed to be there very suddenly. I remember seeing 2 police officers, as I said, who were standing in the middle of the road with their guns aimed at this person on the other side of the bridge. As we were pushed off the bridge, suddenly many more police suddenly arrived. There were sirens everywhere, and there were lots of police personnel on foot, clearing us all away. So it seems like it was a very big response. Now, I don't know what happened to initiate that response. We've seen the police report saying that they were called at around 2 o'clock to reports of a stabbing. I didn't see any of that. All I saw, as I say, was what appeared to be a fight, but it was much more serious. And it seems that several members of the public may have tried to get involved as well.
Yeah, we've seen pictures on social media of police having to pull people off the attacker. An extraordinary bravery, it appears.
Yes, there was one man who was on my side of the road who jumped over the barrier, because there are anti-terrorism barriers on all of London's bridges now, of course. He jumped over that barrier and ran across the road to try to help out, but everybody quickly cleared away from what I remember when the police ordered everybody off the bridge.
All right, John, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. John McManus there, an eyewitness to what happened this afternoon. Well, let's just show you the scene here, very close to London Bridge. These are commuters trying to make their way home, as we were saying earlier on. And as they do so, we've had political reaction. Boris Johnson, we know, is being briefed on what's happened, has returned to Downing Street from his constituency. Priti Patel, the Home Secretary, saying she is very concerned. Jeremy Corbyn, the leader of the Labour Party, saying he's shocked by the reports of what has happened. And the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, saying that his heart goes out to those who have been injured in this. A number of casualties, we understand, as many as 5 people receiving stab wounds, describing it as a horrendous attack and saying that London must stay resolute in the face of terror. And of course, around here, close to London Bridge, memories are very raw, really, of the attack 2 years ago in June 2017, when 8 people died, and as those 3 attackers carried out that horrific attack in June 2017. But that is the latest from the police cordon close to London Bridge. Back to you in the studio, Jane.
Ben, for now, thank you very much. Ben Brown there at the scene in London Bridge. Well, just in the last hour or so, perhaps a little less than an hour, in fact, we did have a statement from the Metropolitan Police. We heard from Assistant Commissioner Neil Basu, who updated journalists at New Scotland Yard about the police operation this afternoon. Let's hear some of what Neil Basu had to say.
I can confirm that at approximately 2 p.m. today, Friday the 29th of November, police were called to a stabbing at a premises near to London Bridge EC1. Emergency services attended, including officers from the City of London Police and the Metropolitan Police. A male suspect was shot by specialist armed officers from the City of London Police, and I can confirm that this suspect died at the scene. A number of other people received injuries during this incident. As soon as we can provide further updates on their condition, we will. And our heartfelt sympathies go out to everybody who's been involved in this and is anxiously waiting for information on their loved ones. As soon as we can get that information, we will get it to you. As you would expect, due to the nature of the incident, we responded as though this was terrorist related. I'm now in a position to confirm that it has been declared a terrorist incident. We are working jointly with the City of London Police as we continue to respond. Officers from the Met's Counter-Terrorism Command are now leading this investigation, but I must stress we retain an open mind as to any motive. It would be inappropriate to speculate further at this time. Due to reports that the suspect may have had an explosive device, specialist officers also attended the scene and wide cordons are in place to ensure there remains no further danger to the public. However, I can confirm at this time we believe a device that was strapped to the body of the suspect is a hoax explosive device. Officers continue to carry out meticulous searches in the area to ensure there is no outstanding threat to the public. Those extensive cordons will remain in place for a considerable time, and I would ask the public, please continue to avoid the area. Public safety is obviously our top priority. We will be enhancing police patrols both in the city and across London. I would ask anyone with information, image or footage of the incident that can be shared with our investigation team to do so on the UK Police Image Appeal website. I would also ask the public to continue to remain vigilant and report any concerns that they have to the police. I know I would ordinarily take questions. I'm not going to take questions at this time. The Prime Minister has asked for a personal briefing, and I'll be heading with the Commissioner of the Met to Downing Street immediately. Thank you for your patience. We will update you again when we can.
So that was Assistant Commissioner Neil Basu from the Metropolitan Police speaking to journalists just in the last hour. And our correspondent Sarah Campbell was at Scotland Yard where that statement was made. And several key strands to what Neil Basu was saying there, Sarah, including, for example, the fact that the suspect appears to have been wearing a hoax explosive device.
Yeah, absolutely. He finished that press conference saying he was going off to give the Prime Minister a briefing. I can tell you he's just walked past me on his way back into New Scotland Yard, so that briefing presumably given to Boris Johnson. So let's go through the main points, what he said. The incident, police were called at 2 o'clock this afternoon. As you say, a male suspect was shot dead at the scene by City of London armed police. He was wearing a hoax suicide vest. discovered after he was shot. But as you say, this would have been, after he'd been tackled very bravely by members of the public, who of course wouldn't have been aware that that was a hoax. It has been declared a terrorist incident, and counter-terrorism officers are now leading the investigation. We do know that a number of other people have been injured. Now, also in the last hour, London's Mayor Sadiq Khan also gave a statement here at New Scotland Yard. He confirmed those injuries. He said that some had been seriously injured. He stressed that there was a need for privacy at the moment for those people who have been injured, for those families. Presumably the emergency services are trying to get hold of their families, tell them what's happened. Mr. Khan said that his heart goes out to them, and when there is an update on the number of injured, that will come from the Metropolitan Police. Let's just go through his statement that he gave. He said, "I want to thank our brave emergency services who responded to today's horrific attack. Every day they put their lives on the line for us, running towards danger in order to keep us safe." He said he'd also like to thank members of the public who risked their own safety this afternoon. They are the best of us. So statements this afternoon from the Metropolitan Police, from London's Mayor. Clearly lots of people wanting some more information. The Met saying that they will give that out when they are able to.
All right, Sarah, I know you'll keep us up to date. Thanks for now. Our correspondent Sarah Campbell there at New Scotland Yard. Well, over the course of the afternoon, as we look at the scene there at London Bridge tonight, of course, everything cordoned off. Normally, Friday night rush hour would be extraordinarily busy, but you could see from that particular last camera angle we were looking at just how quiet it is as police try to maintain a cordon. But of course, everybody trying to get home from work as well at this time on a Friday night. If you don't know it, London Bridge is certainly very much overlooked and surrounded. You get a sense there by an awful lot of office blocks as well as shops and restaurants. And among the many people who were able to see some of what was happening from their offices was Sian Griffiths, who is the education editor of the Sunday Times. So in just a little earlier this afternoon, she told the BBC what she'd been able to see from the windows of her office.
Well, I'm on the 9th floor of our building, which is at London Bridge. We've just been told we've gone into lockdown, which means we can't leave the building. People can't come in. So we have a view right over the bridge, and what we can see is that there are no people on the bridge anymore, no pedestrians. All the buses are halted. There's about 8 red buses halted in the bus lanes all along the bridge. There are about 4, 5, 6 police cars I can count with their lights flashing along the bridge. There's a lorry sort of at right angles across the bridge, across 3 lanes, and police cars blocking the other end of the bridge, the south end of the bridge, and a lot of police people walking around.
You said you were up on the 9th floor. Did you hear anything?
I didn't, but somebody else who works with us, who's now come back up onto the 9th floor, said she was outside and heard gunshots. She was just at the edge of the bridge, and she heard gunshots, and people started running. And she came back upstairs. She heard about 4 gunshots, she says, before she came back into the building. And obviously there was a panic and a lot of people running there.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. Sian, Edwards, for people who live in London, they'll be well aware of London Bridge, but perhaps for people who don't, you work there, can you give us a sense of just how busy it is?
Oh, well, it's really, really busy. And of course, there was an attack on London Bridge not that long ago, a serious terrorist attack. And so after that, they put up a sort of special like a sort of balustrade along the bridge so that people couldn't drive off the road into pedestrians. But it's constantly busy. It's, buses, cars, bicycles. It's one of the busiest bridges in London. And at the moment, there are no pedestrians, the only cars on it, everything is halted.
As you're looking out of the window, Sian, can you see police around somebody lying on the ground? I mean, I'm just wondering if you can see anything that suggests the incident is over or is potentially carrying on.
I can't see police around anyone from where I am. I can see groups of police standing at the south end of the bridge, in between 2 police vans. There's probably about 15 police standing at the south end of the bridge in two groups. There are police now running up the bridge. They're running up the bridge. 2 police are running up the bridge. It looks like they're going back to one of the police cars that's parked on the bridge. I don't think the incident is over because, as I say, it's only about 5 minutes since this building was put into lockdown. So clearly they're trying to keep people away from the area.
Well, that was Sian Griffiths, who is with the Sunday Telegraph, talking about what she could see just a couple of hours ago. Let's get the very latest from our correspondent, Andy Moore, because, Andy, you've been following all of this over the course of the afternoon. Perhaps let's take a moment to reflect on the human impact here, because we heard very strong comments from the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, talking about people's bravery. Explain what he was referring to there.
Well, he talked about the worst of humanity, this single knifeman tackled. He talked about the best of humanity, the passers-by who tackled that suspect terrorist, and the emergency services, the police who obviously went into danger and shot him. I mean, it is amazing that a number of men attacked the knifeman. I've heard reports of some of them using sticks or fire extinguishers. We saw images of one gent in a suit carrying a knife away from the scene. Now, we know a number of people were injured, and Sadiq Khan told us for the first time that some of them were seriously injured. We don't know the number, we don't know the extent of their injuries. I heard one eyewitness say that one of those who tackled the knifeman was injured. He had a wound in his chest, but he was walking wounded. I've seen images of a woman being carried away on a makeshift stretcher. I also saw some disturbing images of the ambulance service surrounding a man. They appeared to be administering CPR. The ambulance service declared it a major incident, and they said they sent a number of ambulance crews and specialist response teams, with the first medic arriving on the scene within 7 minutes. They also say an advanced trauma team from London's air ambulance was dispatched by air, and they said they're obviously working closely with members of the emergency services.
And when we watch these images, Andy, and there will be people watching us who have perhaps seen these images very many times already in the last couple of hours, and yet there is something still staggering watching it that you just, on a human level, you simply cannot get over what appears to be an extraordinarily brave act. That is what is so remarkable. Yes.
Just retreating out of shot just a few seconds ago, you saw, we were just about to see the incident again. So in the background is what was described as a fight by our correspondent on the scene. A number of men are tackling the knifeman. He's on the ground. They don't know whether he has an explosive vest. They don't know whether it's fake or not. And at this stage, just on the left-hand side, you can see a man, and he's the one carrying the knife away from the scene. You can see him now on the left-hand side with a knife in his right-hand side, a city gent, essentially, a man in a suit. So he's taken away one knife. I've seen other images where there is yet another knife left at the scene. So extraordinary heroism, breathtaking heroism from members of the public before, it seems, the armed police arrived on the scene. We know from the police that the incident actually started at 1:58 at another location. They talk about premises near London Bridge. This is where it ends about 10 or 12 minutes later. We don't know what happened in the intervening time, but we heard from one witness who said she saw people coming out of a building with injuries before these images here that we see now.
Yes, as you suggest, there's clearly a lot of information we still don't know, but I know you'll stay with us for now, Andy. Thank you very much. It's worth, I think, just hearing some of that statement that the Mayor of London made within the last hour. As we say, he's been paying tribute to the emergency services and to members of the public who risked their safety this afternoon. He reminded the public in London to stay vigilant.
What's remarkable about the images we've seen is the breathtaking heroism of members of the public who literally ran towards danger, not knowing what confronted them. We do know from the statement given by the Assistant Commissioner Neil Basu that there appears to have been a device on the suspect. Members of the public didn't realise at the time that was a hoax device, and they really are the best of us. Another example of the bravery and heroism of ordinary Londoners running towards danger, risking their own personal safety to try and save others. And I want to say thank you to them on behalf of all Londoners, but also because it shows the best of us.
The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, speaking in the last hour. Now let's return to the scene. We'll go back to London Bridge itself. My colleague Ben Brown is there. Ben.
Yeah, Jane, we're at one of the police cordons. There's a lot of police cordons around here, sealing off the whole London Bridge area. And it is causing, as you would imagine, chaos at rush hour here in the City of London. You can see people here trying to get home, past the police lines, get to Cannon Street station, which is just behind me. And really, I suppose it's fair to say that Londoners are beginning to get used to this kind of disruption and this kind of attack. We've had the Westminster Bridge attack, the London Bridge attack right here just 2 years ago in June 2017, when 8 people lost their lives after those 3 attackers drove a van at speed over London Bridge and carried out that attack. And I suppose what happened here today really rekindled those very raw memories of that attack just a couple of years ago. But as we've been hearing, there has been extraordinary bravery by passers-by who witnessed what happened. Other people completely shocked by what they saw and what they heard when they heard those gunshots. And we've been hearing from one eyewitness, Noah Bodner, who actually took sanctuary in a nearby restaurant.
There was a rush of people coming in, and then everybody basically dived under the table. We were told to keep away from the windows. People that came from the outside were saying that shots were fired. At that point, obviously, we didn't know if it was police firing or somebody else. We were then advised by the staff, the manager here, Jordan, who very bravely ran and shut the doors and made sure everything is locked so nobody could come in, to move away from the front of the restaurant, which is literally sat on the bridge, to the back here. And everybody seems to be calm and in good spirits back here, just looking for more information on their phones and getting some water and basically everybody's just asking if people are okay and if anything is needed. So.
And the police have been into the restaurant and told people to stay put?
No police has come into the restaurant that I've seen so far, but I think they might have contacted the restaurant either by phone or in some way, telling us to stay in until further notice. And there seems to be some sort of commotion happening right now outside on the station side. People are seen running, but I'm not sure what that is exactly. The police is present, so.
What you say a commotion? Can you give us any further details? What can you see, Noah Bodner?
We just saw a couple of people running past, and police telling people to probably stay away, people coming from the station. So I don't know if another thing happened, but and a car just came onto the bridge. So
and
I assume it's police.
How many people are there in the restaurant with you, would you estimate?
I guess around maybe 70 people or so.
Oh, quite a large number then.
Sorry, can you repeat that? People are saying to move away from the windows again.
Yeah, quite a large number then. Is the mood fairly calm?
It is rather calm. Yes, I mean, there's some people seem a bit distressed, but they're being looked after by friends or staff, and then the rest of them are just trying to stay put and keep calm.
Yes, and just remind us again what it is that people said to you who rushed into the restaurant after the incident appeared to unfold.
They basically went, get under the tables, shots been fired, you've heard gunshots.
And they ran in because the restaurant is actually on the bridge, is it?
It is on the bridge, yeah. So they ran in, and then the staff here went to the door and shut it and locked it.
So that was Noah Bodner there, an eyewitness talking about her experience of what happened. Well, just here you can see people trying to get home amid scenes of some chaos, it has to be said. But Londoners here are pretty calm and pretty phlegmatic after what has happened here. More shocking events in the capital, and this news that a man has been shot dead by armed police and several other people have been injured. Well, there is huge police activity still this evening. British Transport Police are saying that they're going to increase the number of officers they have on duty in the capital over the weekend, including firearms officers. But we're seeing police cars racing up and down the roads around here, police boats on the River Thames and helicopters as well. So a lot of activity after what's happened here this afternoon. Jane, back to you.
Ben, thank you very much. Ben Brown there at the scene. Well, welcome. If you are just joining us here on BBC News, we are bringing you continuing coverage of events at London Bridge in the centre of the capital here tonight. Welcome if you are just joining us. I'm Jane Hill. Let's just give you a recap of everything we know about events so far in the last 3 hours. Police have declared a major terrorist incident in central London after a man was shot by armed officers attending an incident near London Bridge. Police say a male suspect died at the scene and a hoax explosive device was found on his body. Officers were called to reports of a stabbing a little bit before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A number of people have been injured, and in the last hour or so, the Mayor of London has said that some of those injuries are serious. The London Ambulance Service declared a major incident. Well, this video was sent to us, which appears to show members of the public wrestling with a man on the floor. Armed police then move in, pull the civilian away, and then shots were fired at the man. The Metropolitan Police Counter-Terrorism Command is now leading the investigation. So we are still waiting, I should say, for a statement from the Prime Minister Boris Johnson. We were led to believe that we were going to have comments from him, so we'll bring those to you as and when we get them. But let's, of course, very much stay with this story here tonight. And I'm joined in the studio by Chris Phillips, a former senior police officer with experience in counter-terrorism. And we appreciate your time tonight, Chris Phillips. Thanks very much for being with us. And the assumption of terrorism that Neil Basu from the Metropolitan Police talked about. He said, this is declared a terrorist incident, but we keep an open mind. Now, you can, with your experience, can unpick for us exactly what that means, what the police are saying there.
Yeah, I think you've always got to keep an open mind whenever you get an incident like this. However, anyone that's stabbing people and has got a suicide or a pretend suicide vest around them is always going to be, terrorism is always going to be at the top of the list of things to do. And of course, what that does, it allows the police to bring in extra counter-terrorism officers in order to deal with it.
And therefore, right now, what are the police priorities?
Well, the priorities are making sure that this person is, in fact, a lone wolf, a lone actor, if you want. They would want to find out exactly who he is, where he comes from, what his history is, and what he's been doing and who he's been communicating with. Because, of course, we're taking it that it's a one-off, one person, but we don't know that yet, and that's what the investigators will be trying to find out. And
there's never a good time, but this is, I mean, I'm curious from your perspective what you make of the timing. We are in the middle of a general election campaign in this country. For you, with your experience, is that relevant?
Well, it is relevant, amongst other things, actually. We've had people, leaders of ISIS have been killed recently, but also we've seen the threat level go down in this country. And that doesn't necessarily mean too much because, of course, if this is an individual that's gone on and done this on his own with no other backup, then he could easily do that without the police knowing anything about it. So it is one of those things. If that is the case, if this is a lone actor that's decided to go and do this on his own, very, very difficult for the police to ever stop that.
By the same token, in terms of that lone wolf issue, the difficulty for the police, the anxiety must be, presumably, without wanting to be alarmist in any way, is they are looking around the rest of the capital, presumably. They're looking at other big urban areas up and down the country to see whether anything else is planned. I mean, that's the unknown quantity.
Very much so, and this is one of the issues. We've had people coming back from Syria now. We've got a lot of people that have come back. We've got people that have come out of prison that are already known terrorists, and the police have got thousands of people to watch. So any individual in amongst that could go and do this. I think what we have seen, and what I think is worthy of note here, though, is that the members of the public were holding on to someone who was potentially carrying and strapped with a bomb around his stomach. So whilst the police and the government put out the run, hide, tell piece, actually, if members of the public do get involved, then lives will have been saved. I've no doubt that that's the case today. And if the police officers, when they saw what they saw, immediately dispatched him, then that tells you the potential danger there was for members of the public.
Yes, and I'm struck that you mentioned that, actually, because we keep coming back to that point here in our coverage. People watching some of the footage we have seen of members of the public just out and about trying to tackle someone, it is extraordinary. It is so brave. I know there's so much we still don't know, but from what we see, it is so brave, and that is just remarkable.
It is remarkable, and people will do it without necessarily thinking about the consequences. But of course, you know, the chap that I saw was actually struggling with this guy on the ground, and he must have been able to see these things that were strapped around the man. So incredibly brave. Thank goodness people are willing to step forward at times like that. And of course, it could have been so much worse if it had been an explosive.
All right. Chris Phillips, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks for bringing us your expertise tonight, an expert in counter-terrorism issues. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. You're watching BBC News. We are continuing our coverage, of course, after the police in London declared a terrorist incident after a man has been shot dead on London Bridge in central London. The incident began, or police were called, we should say, a little bit before 2 o'clock in the afternoon local time. So a busy Friday afternoon, and the whole area around London Bridge, which is a major transport hub, is still cordoned off, and the police are urging people to avoid the area. We also know, we should say, that a number of people have sustained injuries, and that's one of the elements of this that we are waiting to hear more about, because regrettably the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, was saying that some of the injuries, he has been told, are serious. That is as much as we know at this stage, but we do know, sadly, that some people, it appears, are badly injured, but we don't have any numbers on that. So there's still a great deal of information to come through, but crucially the Metropolitan Police saying that a male suspect was shot dead at the scene, and a hoax explosive device, as the Metropolitan Police call it, was on the body. We're expecting to hear from the Prime Minister shortly with his first comments on this incident. Let's hear a little, though, first of all, from someone else who was near the scene when all of this began, as we say, around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon local time. Let's hear from this eyewitness, Kirsten Jones.
Actually, I was walking onto the bridge from the north side, walking towards Monument Station, and there was a police van hurtling down the road, and City of London police sprinting and shouting, and we thought, oh, perhaps someone's been hit by a car. As we got further towards the station and onto the bridge, people were starting to run, and there was quite a lot of panic. Then we heard about 2, 3, maybe 4 very loud gunshots, and that's when the police started really screaming at people to get off the bridge and really run and try and get into the safest and nearest building with security.
So police were shouting at people. I mean, tell us a bit more about what they were saying and what the general mood of people was and how they reacted.
It was panic, really. People were very panicked. Of course, you've got to remember, most people around here are tourists. You know, the lunchtime rush is over. I was lucky enough to have a bit of a later lunch today, and I regret having that now, but it was very panicked. The police were just really screaming at people, run, run, run. There wasn't much more than that, just keep safe, run.
And what did you do, apart from, I assume, run?
Yes, I was with one of my work colleagues, and we just grabbed each other's hands and ran to the nearest building.
And where was that?
The Sky Garden.
Right, and
we ran straight down the street.
And that's where you are at the moment, is it?
We are now out of the building, but we've been advised not to go anywhere south of that road, which I believe is Fenchurch Street. So we are now with a lot of members of the public around Leadenhall Market, which is believed to be safe. There's a lot of police cordons around those streets, though.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, we know that the underground stations are closed, the bridge is closed, clearly. Yeah. The cordon, from what Tom Simons and John McManus, our correspondents, were telling us, is very wide. So are people tending to stay put, or are they trying to get out of the centre of town?
I think those with less understanding, who perhaps haven't been towards London Bridge, are trying to go back that way, or are trying to question police to say, what's going on? Can we get that way? But of course, they're being ushered in the opposite direction. Those of us with an understanding are staying put or staying north and following that advice to stay away.
I hesitate to say, but it must have been, and indeed must still be, very frightening. What was going through your mind?
Yes, well, I suppose it's a shock, isn't it? You know, I live and work in London, but there are a lot of potentially scary situations that happen that then turn out to be a false alarm or something like that. So initially I thought the best and thought perhaps it's just a small accident, and then it was only when the police started shouting that, yes, we got very shaky and we ran away.
Yes, I'm sure. And I presume that where you are and in the vicinity, I mean, how many police and emergency services can you still see?
We are on a side street at the moment, so there are no police in our direct area, but there are an awful lot of sirens going on. I was on the corner by Fenchurch Street, and they've been clearing the roads repeatedly for a number of ambulances to go up and down, which is just very frightening. You wonder how many people have been hurt.
Kirsten Jones, who was near the scene, speaking to the BBC a couple of hours ago. Now, we can hear the latest comments from the Prime Minister. Let's just hear from Boris Johnson, who's been speaking in Downing Street.
Prime Minister, your response, if I could, Prime Minister, to the incident at London Bridge.
Well, I've just been briefed by the Commissioner and the Assistant Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police about the events at London Bridge this afternoon. And while this is an ongoing investigation, the police can confirm that this was a terrorist incident. And clearly, my thoughts are first with the emergency services, with the police, the bravery that they showed in going towards danger as they do. I also want to pay tribute to the extraordinary bravery of those members of the public who physically intervened to protect the lives of others. And for me, they represent the very best of our country, and I thank them on behalf of all of our country. I think we're all very saddened also to learn that some people have been injured in this event, and our sympathies are very much with them and with their loved ones. Clearly, the Metropolitan Police are continuing their investigations, and I can assure you and assure everyone that anybody involved in this crime, in these attacks, will be hunted down and will be brought to justice. And I think the message that we send to them and anyone associated with this type of attack is one that will be familiar, and that is that this country will never be cowed or divided or intimidated by this sort of attack, and our values, our British values, will prevail.
Prime Minister, have you learned more from your briefings with senior officers about the suspect and the background to this incident, whether or not you're able to share that with us now?
Well, there is a certain amount that the police are able to share with us at the moment, but it is not yet entirely clear, and they're not at a stage where it's possible to go public. But what I can say is that here in Number 10, we will continue to be having meetings and consultations as the evening goes on.
Is it your understanding that the immediate danger following from this incident has passed with the killing of this suspect?
Well, to the best of our knowledge, the incident has been contained, but I pay tribute again to the work of the police and the emergency services in what they've done. But I would urge everybody, of course, to be vigilant, and one cannot help but think back to what happened in 2017 in the same part of the city, and I hope very much that people will be able, as fast as possible, to go about their normal business.
And just finally, this happened, of course, in the middle of a general election campaign. Will campaigning continue as normal?
Well, I've obviously stopped my campaigning for this evening, but we'll be reviewing the matter in the course of the next few hours.
Prime Minister, thank you.
So the Prime Minister Boris Johnson speaking to the BBC's Deputy Political Editor John Pienaar there, paying tribute to the bravery of people who intervened on London Bridge and to the emergency services for their swift response. And just at the end there, as you heard, the Prime Minister saying he has stopped campaigning for this evening and will reconsider over the next few hours. We are less than 2 weeks from a general election, of course. Let's also assess where we are tonight and what we know so far with our news correspondent Andy Moore, who's been with me and following all of this over the last few hours. It's fair to say, I think, Andy, that there's a certain amount we don't know about the time scale here. We keep saying the Met Police responded around about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but there's still lots of elements of this that are not clear.
Yes, I mean, all the video we're seeing is from the end of the incident, which happened at about 10 past 2. But we know from the police that the incident started at 1:58 in premises. They're not more specific than that, in premises to the north of London Bridge. And we've heard from eyewitnesses who talked about injured people coming out of a building on the north side of the bridge. We still don't know what that building is. There were some reports that an underground station, possibly Monument Station, that some members of staff had been attacked there. I haven't heard any more about those reports since. But yes, we still don't know how the incident started and progressed. But the fact that it started sometime before the pictures that we can see explains why police officers were on the scene apparently so quickly, because they had been called sometime in advance. Perhaps also I should talk a little about the white truck, the lorry that was seen across the bridge. It was surrounded by police officers. There were reports that police officers had shot at that vehicle. I think those reports were inaccurate. People were hearing shots from the other end of the bridge. These images we're seeing at the moment are of these incredibly brave people who intervened. One of them retreats with a knife, taking the knife away from the suspect. But going back to that truck, it doesn't appear to be linked to this incident now in any way. You can imagine with a vehicle that's jackknifed across the bridge and police are aware of a possible terrorist incident, they would be suspicious of that and they would surround it. But it doesn't seem to be linked to the man who we see being tackled by members of the public.
Andy, thank you very much for now. Andy Moore. Now, I believe we can speak to Will Geddes, the security and counter-terrorism expert who joins me tonight via webcam. Will, thank you for your time this evening. From everything we've been hearing, from the timeline that we're just outlining there, what is your take on events in the last few hours in central London?
Well, there's an awful lot to take from this on both the profile of the individual that carried out this attack from the information that we know so far, and inevitably the authorities are going to respond in as wider approach as they possibly can, because the concern always will be of simultaneous attacks, as we've seen historically, occurring in different locations. But I think what it does show is that the authorities are incredibly well rehearsed in terms of their reaction and response to this incident. But this individual, again, has injured members of the general public. As yet, we've got to ascertain what injuries they have actually sustained.
Yes, and what are the priorities for the police and for counter-terrorism officers in terms of establishing whether this person was a lone wolf, or establishing whether there's any networks? Where do they go now in that sense?
Well, as they would generally do in the wake of these types of attacks, whether the individual, the perpetrator, is alive or not, as they are in this case, they will inevitably research very forensically through all their belongings, and that's not just their digital devices in terms of their phones and the footprint that they may have left, their communications, the networks that they may have been talking with, and how potentially they may have been radicalized, whether they're part of a larger group, but also in terms of their origins. Where are they from? Who have they socialized with? There will be a real treasure trove of intelligence that the authorities will need to go through in the next few days, if not next few weeks, which will contribute to that ever-growing tapestry or jigsaw, if you like, of counter-terrorism, which is finding those incremental pieces, putting them together and seeing how the dots are joining.
Will Geddes, many thanks for your time this evening. Thanks for being with us, and let's just return to the scene and go back to Ben.
Yeah, Jane, as we've been hearing really this evening, there's been huge praise for those Londoners who intervened to, it appears, to overwhelm the attacker, and the police actually pulled members of the public off the attacker so that they could shoot him. Extraordinary scenes there on London Bridge. And really, for those people now who are filing home from the City of London, rush hour commuters trying to make their way past the various police cordons that have caused chaos here in the city this evening, there is, I think it's fair to say, a mood of calm. The threat level, the terror threat level, was reduced only at the beginning of this month from severe to substantial. But Londoners have become used to terror alerts, terror attacks as well. We had the attack here a couple of years ago at London Bridge in which 8 people died, the Westminster Bridge attack as well. And people are, I think it's fair to say, reasonably phlegmatic as well at the moment. But there is still huge police activity at the moment. A vast area around London Bridge is locked down and cordoned off, and a major police investigation underway this evening.
Many thanks. Ben Brown there at the scene in London Bridge, where we will, of course, bring you continuing coverage of events in central London today. Here, a busy Friday afternoon, the run up to Christmas, it's Black Friday, and we're in the middle of a general election campaign. And police saying in the last couple of hours that they have declared a major terrorist incident. One man has been shot dead by the police. Other people have been injured, and huge praise for the bravery of members of the public. You're watching BBC News.
Good evening. It's been much drier today. There's been a good deal of sunshine, but under the starry skies now, temperatures are already falling away. So we're in for drier weather for the weekend, yes, but some very cold nights and with a risk of fog. So there are warnings out. The warnings are on the website. Let's look at where we've had the showers through the day. Mainly northern and eastern areas, still a few in the south and west. So where the surfaces are damp, with the temperatures already getting to below freezing in places, it does mean that the ice risk is quite high. But for many of us further south, particularly for England and Wales, we're going to see more mist developing and thickening up to fog, some dense fog by morning. So it does look as if the frost will be more widespread than last night, because temperatures will be a couple of degrees lower again. That means the frost will be harder as well. As you can see, it's much further south. Now, that means that tomorrow morning, as well as being cold and freezing, we could have some fog. So some freezing fog, really quite treacherous for road users. It looks as if it'll be across England and Wales. Don't take this as the defined areas of fog, but it gives you the idea of how widespread we're expecting that fog to be. Visibility is down to 50 metres in places. The wind strengthening in the south will tend to lift it into low cloud, but in some areas, perhaps the East Midlands, Lincolnshire, Northern England, it could stay with freezing fog much of the day, so therefore it's going to feel really cold. And of course, with a strengthening wind and all the cloud further south, it'll feel quite raw here as well. For others, though, it's dry. We'll see some sunshine. It won't be particularly warm, but fewer showers to the east coast. They'll still continue, though, across the north of Scotland. And then, as I say, through the day, we've got this increasing cloud coming into the south and west. Perhaps you drizzle here, even possibly stretching up into the south of Wales. That keen east wind makes it feel quite raw, and through the night it'll slip its way eastwards and possibly bring in a few showers across other eastern parts of England. But then through Sunday it moves away and the high pressure re-establishes itself again. So by then the showers mostly northern and eastern areas, perhaps a few more for eastern England and perhaps East Anglia in the southeast. Still that keen wind making it feel cold. Elsewhere, Northern Ireland, southern Scotland,